The coffee hadn't even cooled in her cup. She slid it across the table, her lipstick already printed on the rim, and smiled like she was offering me something sweet. "Don't wait up. I'm going on a date tonight," she said as casually as if she were telling me she needed to pick up milk. I blinked. Thought maybe I misheard her. She leaned back, stirred her coffee again, she never stirs it twice, then added, "Don't be jealous." That's when the spoon clinked against the side of the mug and her smirk widened. And I just sat there. Not because I didn't know what to say. No. I said something, I'll get to that. But in that second, my whole body went still. Like time cracked, and I could see every version of myself at once. The guy who packed her lunch, the one who installed those stupid fairy lights in the backyard, the man who once ran 3 blocks in the rain to return her dropped earring. She stared at me like she was proud of the performance. Like she'd rehearsed the whole thing. I could see it in her eyes, she wanted me to break. She needed me to react. Maybe throw the mug. Maybe shout. Maybe beg. Instead, I looked down at her coffee. Still steaming. The faint swirl of creamer still turning like a slow hurricane. And I said the first thing that came to my lips. "Good. Tell him thanks for fixing the squeaky bed frame." Her breath caught. Her pupils twitched just slightly. Her spoon fell out of her hand and hit the floor with a tiny metallic clink. She didn't laugh anymore. She didn't move. Because deep down she knew I knew. I didn't say anything else. I stood up. Walked upstairs. Closed the door. Locked it. Not because I was scared. Because I needed silence to think. And what I realized in that silence was worse than any yelling could have been. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. This had been planned. And the worst part? The coffee was still hot. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't cry either. I just sat in our dim hallway staring at the bedroom door she used to decorate with dried flowers, wondering how many things I never noticed. The silence around me wasn't peaceful, it was surgical. It cut deeper than any shouting match ever could. It made me realize that the home I had poured my entire soul into had quietly turned into a theater. And I was the only one who didn't know he was acting in a tragedy. By morning, she was already gone. No text. No call. Not even a fake apology on a post-it like the ones she used to leave when she forgot dinner plans. Just the faint scent of that perfume, spicy, unfamiliar, lingering in the living room like a ghost I couldn't exorcise. I brewed a fresh cup of coffee. Out of habit, I poured 2. I stared at hers for a few seconds before dumping it down the sink. I didn't want to look through her things. I really didn't. But when I sat down at the dining table, I noticed her planner half open on the seat next to mine. The one she guarded like a dragon hoarding gold. I hadn't touched it in years. She used to joke that even the CIA couldn't crack her schedule. But today, I cracked. There wasn't anything juicy in the beginning. Meetings. Appointments. A dog grooming session that never actually happened. But then I noticed something odd. Tucked between 2 blank pages in the back was a folded napkin from a steakhouse we'd never been to. On it, scribbled hastily in red pen. Same room. Same time. Wear that thing I like. No name. No initials. Just those words and a lipstick mark beside them. I must have read that line 20 times before I realized I wasn't breathing properly. My hands were trembling, not from rage but from the sinking confirmation that this wasn't just a date. This was a pattern. A routine. An arrangement so normal to her now that she used napkins to log them. I don't know what came over me, but I snapped a photo of the note, closed the planner, and calmly placed it back exactly how I found it. I wasn't going to confront her right away. No, that would have been too easy for her. Too expected. She was waiting for the explosion. I could feel it. She thought she controlled the script. But I wasn't playing along anymore. Later that day, she came home like nothing happened. She dropped her bag by the door, hummed a tune I didn't recognize, and casually asked if I wanted Thai for dinner. I said sure. She smiled, actually smiled, and went to take a shower. She didn't realize I'd already checked the back of her neck. There was a faint smear of lipstick. The same color as the one on the napkin. I stared at the bathroom door, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't hurt. I was planning. Not revenge. Not something cruel. Just truth. Because if there's one thing more terrifying than a man screaming at betrayal, it's a man who knows and says nothing. And the silence? She hadn't even begun to fear it yet. That night, we sat across from each other at the little square kitchen table we bought during our Let's Be Minimalist phase 5 years ago. The pad thai between us was lukewarm by the time either of us picked up our forks. She poured wine like it was a reward for being civil, clinking my glass like she wasn't hiding lipstick-stained secrets in her purse. I watched her carefully. Every gesture, every blink, every nervous smile. And I mirrored her energy. I nodded. I chuckled when she made a joke about her boss's obsession with spreadsheets. I even touched her hand once. It was cold. She kept glancing at her phone, tapping the screen, locking it again. Her voice stayed steady, but her body was telling a completely different story. The fingers that usually twirled noodles now tapped a rhythm on her thigh. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly every time her phone lit up. I was beginning to realize that guilt doesn't always show up in breakdowns or apologies. Sometimes it looks like forced normalcy. Sometimes it's the way someone wipes down a spotless countertop just to keep from looking you in the eye. "So," she said, refilling her glass, "you're being really sweet tonight. Did something happen?" I looked up from my plate and gave her the warmest smile I could fake. "No, I just figured. You deserve to feel appreciated." She blinked. There it was again, that flicker of confusion, almost like a glitch in her programming. For a split second, I saw her brace for the hit she was certain would come. And when it didn't, she looked lost. I asked her about her book club. She hesitated just for a breath, but then launched into a story about a woman named Gina who apparently started crying over a memoir none of them had read. I asked questions. I nodded in all the right places. I made her feel like I believed her, because I needed her to get comfortable again. The plan wasn't just to catch her. That part was inevitable. The real goal was to let her fall back into the illusion that I was the same man who folded when she snapped. The same soft-hearted doormat who once said, "I'm sorry," after she called me emotionally unavailable. Let her think I was still asleep. Let her talk. Let her lie. After dinner, she cleaned up the dishes. I pretended to check email but was really watching her reflection in the microwave door. She was humming again. That same unrecognizable tune. It annoyed me, but not because it was off-key. It annoyed me because it meant she was relaxed. She thought the storm had passed. She thought I'd accepted the smell of another man's cologne in our bedsheets as something that could be washed away. The next morning, she left early for a meeting. Her heels clicked confidently across the porch like nothing in the world could shake her rhythm. I watched from the upstairs window. Her car backed out of the driveway. Her taillights disappeared around the corner. I walked downstairs and opened her laptop. I knew the password. She never changed it. It was still her high school mascot and the year we met. That detail alone should have hurt, but it just made me realize how little effort she put into hiding anything. There were no messages, no files, no browser history, but in the trash folder of her email I found something. Something she must have thought was deleted forever. A calendar invitation. Hotel Bellevue, room 314, Friday. Dinner and dessert. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't change. If anything, I felt calm, because now I had a time, place, and all I had to do was wait. But not to ruin her night. That would have been too easy. No, I had something else in mind. Something she'd never see coming. Friday came slower than any day I can remember. The week dragged like a stubborn shadow, every hour thick with anticipation. I kept rehearsing everything in my mind. My tone, my posture, what I'd wear, even how long I'd wait before stepping through the door. I didn't want to catch them in some dramatic, over-the-top scene. This wasn't about theatrics. I wanted quiet clarity. I wanted to see her face the moment the illusion shattered. That morning, I watched her get ready. She hummed while she packed an overnight bag, carefully folding a wine-colored dress I'd never seen before and placing it on top like a trophy. She took extra time curling her hair, sprayed perfume behind her ears twice instead of once. She kissed me on the cheek, muttered something about board members needing guidance, and was out the door before I could blink. I stood in the hallway with the faint smell of jasmine clinging to my collar, pretending I didn't feel like vomiting. I waited exactly 90 minutes before leaving. The drive to Hotel Bellevue took 13 minutes, though it felt like 30. I parked in the back lot, pulled my hoodie up, and sat in the car for a long while watching the front entrance through the rearview mirror. At 5:42 p.m., I saw her. She was laughing, really laughing, in the kind of way she hadn't laughed with me in years. She was with a man maybe 5 years younger than her, tan and confident looking, with that loosened tie, fake casual kind of style. He touched the small of her back as they entered the building. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it. I waited until 6:10. Then I got out, walked through the side entrance, and made my way up to the third floor using the stairs. I didn't need cameras or confrontation. I just needed certainty. And I needed it to scar deep enough to kill the last flicker of denial still hiding in my gut. I stood outside room 314 for 5 minutes. Maybe longer. The hallway was too quiet. I could hear distant elevator dings, the occasional door latch clicking shut on another floor. But behind 314? Muffled laughter. The clink of glass. A low voice, his probably saying something I couldn't make out, followed by hers, high-pitched and delighted. That sound, that specific tone of her laugh. I'd heard it before, back when she still got excited over movie trailers and snow days. But it hadn't been meant for me in years. I didn't knock. I didn't barge in. Instead, I slid a small envelope under the door and walked away. Inside the envelope were 2 things, a photo of the napkin with her lipstick on it and a printed screenshot of the calendar invite. No note. No explanation. Just evidence, surgical, precise. I didn't go home after that. I drove to a diner on the edge of town and sat in the corner booth with a bottomless cup of burnt coffee. I didn't even look at my phone for 2 hours. I just stared out the window, trying to breathe evenly while the low hum of conversations around me reminded me that the world kept spinning even when your personal orbit collapsed. By the time I checked my phone, there were 8 missed calls. 5 texts. All from her. They started casual. Hey, did you need something? Weird thing under our door, was that from you? Then, a shift. Elmer, what the hell is this? Where are you? We need to talk. I need to explain. Please. Explain what? That she's bored? That I didn't make her feel alive? That I was safe but not exciting? I could already hear the justifications before she even said them. I imagined her sitting on the edge of the bed in room 314, still in her wine-colored dress, holding my evidence in her perfectly manicured hands, trying to calculate how to pivot the blame without sounding like a villain. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because, for the first time in a very long time, she didn't deserve them. And that silence was finally mine to wield. She was waiting for me when I finally came home. I walked through the front door just after midnight, exhausted but hollow, like my soul had been quietly scooped out somewhere between the hotel hallway and the last refill of coffee at the diner. The house was dark except for the lamp in the living room, her favorite one with the warm amber shade that she always said made the place feel less sterile. I stood in the doorway, keys still in hand, while she sat curled on the couch in that same wine-colored dress, her makeup smeared slightly at the corners of her eyes. She had a blanket wrapped around her shoulders like a child in trouble. She didn't speak right away. Just stared at me like she was hoping I'd smile first, that I'd offer some pathetic relief with my usual gentle tone, like I always had when things got uncomfortable. But I wasn't uncomfortable anymore. I was done. Can we talk? She asked finally, her voice almost timid. She hadn't sounded like that in years. It wasn't remorse. It was fear. I nodded once. Not out of kindness, just to see where this would go. She started with something rehearsed. I know what this looks like, but I raised my hand. She stopped. I didn't want to hear her script. I wanted the truth. The raw, uncut version. But I could already tell I wouldn't get it. So I said nothing. That silence? It broke her. Her mouth trembled as she tried again. Elmer, I swear, I wasn't planning on it being anything serious. It just happened. I felt trapped in there it was. The shift. I was the cage. She was the poor bird fluttering toward a newer, shinier window. I let her ramble for nearly 5 minutes about how the man from the hotel was just a friend at first, how things at home felt distant, how she never wanted to hurt me. Her voice cracked in all the right places, but her eyes kept scanning my face like she was trying to gauge how much I still loved her. I didn't interrupt. Not once. When she finally stopped, she stared at me waiting. Expecting maybe that I'd argue. Cry. Plead. Beg her to fix it. Instead, I walked over to the table, picked up the napkin she'd thrown out the night before, unfolded it slowly, and laid it flat between us. You left your print, I said quietly, tapping the lipstick mark. She stared at it. Her lips parted like she might say something, but no words came out. You were never going to tell me, I added. You were going to keep coming home, pouring wine, asking about my day. Lying into your pillow while I made you coffee every morning. It wasn't like that, she whispered. Yes, it was, I said, with a calm so foreign it didn't even feel like my voice. I messed up, she said, her voice suddenly trembling. But I still love you. I want to fix this. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it away. You love me? I asked. Or do you love what I do for you? She looked down. The silence stretched again. And then I said something that I hadn't planned. Something that even surprised me. I called your mother tonight. That got her attention. Her head snapped up. Why? Because I figured if anyone would understand who you really are, it's the woman who raised you. Her expression darkened. What did you tell her? Only what she needed to know. That you're coming home for a while. That I need space. Real space. Not the kind you use as an excuse to see other people. Her mouth opened in protest, but she didn't speak. You're staying with her, I said plainly. Take the guest room. Stay as long as you need. I'll box your things and drop them off. She stood up sharply, panic rising. You're kicking me out? I'm asking for something I should have asked for years ago, I said. Peace. For a moment, she looked like she might scream. Like the truth was too sharp to hold without bleeding. But instead, she just exhaled shakily, nodded once, and walked upstairs in silence. An hour later, I heard the suitcase wheels click down the hallway. The front door opened. Then it closed. No final words. No last look. She was gone. But I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel strong. I felt unhooked. Like someone had cut the cord that connected me to the person I used to be. The version of me who excused everything for the sake of love, for the sake of us. I sat in that amber light for a long time. Just breathing. And in the quiet, something else started to rise, not rage. Not sorrow. But clarity. This wasn't the end. It was the start of what came after her. It had been 5 days. 5 days since the door shut behind her. 5 days since I folded her favorite coat into a box without any care for the silk. 5 days since my home became my space again, even if it echoed with the absence of the chaos I once mistook for love. I'd been waking up earlier. I started opening the curtains again. I even bought new sheets, gray ones, plain and cold and clean. It was like rinsing the house of her fingerprints. But she wasn't done. Late Friday evening, just as the sky began fading into that soft bruised purple and the streetlights buzzed to life, my phone rang. I stared at the screen. Her name. No emoji. No cute nickname. Just Darla. I should have let it go to voicemail, but curiosity is a venom that numbs logic. I answered. Her voice came through a second later, quiet, almost sweet. Hey. I didn't reply. She sighed. So, I've been thinking a lot about everything. And I know I said some awful things. I know I hurt you. But Elmer, I miss us. I miss you. Still, I said nothing. I'm not with him anymore, she added, and her voice cracked. It wasn't real. It never was. I think I needed to feel something again. I don't know what part of that was supposed to comfort me. That she used another man's body to feel alive? That she considered our life together so numb that infidelity was the cure? When I still didn't speak, she got defensive. You can't seriously be throwing away 15 years over one mistake. That word, mistake, sent something crawling under my skin. A mistake is forgetting your anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is not betrayal laced with weeks of planning, lies, and a hotel key card. What do you want, Darla? I finally asked, my voice low but steady. There was a pause. Then, to come home. I want to come home. We can work on this. Maybe go to that counselor you always mentioned. I'm ready now. I almost laughed. Now she was ready when the fantasy popped, when the thrill dimmed, when reality came crawling back through the cracks she'd paved with wine-colored lipstick and hotel rooms. I don't think you understand, I said quietly. There is no home to come back to. What, she snapped, her voice sharpening. You're just giving up? After everything? No, I said. You gave up. I just finally noticed. Silence. Then her tone shifted, just like it always had when she realized she wasn't winning. So that's it? After all the years I stood by you through your pathetic jobs and anxiety and... Don't, I interrupted. She kept going, her words sharpening like teeth. I could have had better. I chose you, Elmer. You think anyone else would put up with your whiny, always nervous, too soft for the world act? You think you're some kind of catch now because you had the guts to throw me out? I didn't flinch. She wanted to provoke me. Drag me back into that mess of self-doubt and guilt. But I didn't live there anymore. You didn't choose me, I said evenly. You settled. And then you punished me for it. There was a breath on the other end. Not a sharp inhale, this one was different. Heavier. And then, without another word, she hung up. I stared at the wall for a long time after that. She would call again. I knew she would. Or she'd show up. Cry. Rage. Make promises. Play the victim. That cycle was familiar. She wore it like perfume. But this time, I wasn't holding the door open. The next morning, I drove to a quiet little print shop and had something made. One small, clean card. On it were just 5 words. This number no longer serves. I taped it to my front door, because eventually she'd come knocking again. But I'd already moved on from answering. It was 2 weeks later when I heard the knock. Not the kind of knock that comes from delivery drivers or curious neighbors. This was hesitant, soft, the kind you make when you're unsure if the door will open or if it will eat you alive. I didn't move at first. I was in the kitchen, peeling an apple with an absurd amount of focus, as if the shape of the peel might reveal some hidden message from the universe. But when the knock came again, slightly louder this time, I knew exactly who it was. I walked slowly to the front door, and there she stood, Darla. Rain clung to her coat in droplets. Her eyes were red, not freshly crying, but like someone who'd been living in an echo chamber of regret and couldn't scrub it off. She looked smaller somehow, not physically but in presence. This was not the woman who threw on a silk blouse and told me she was going on a date with a smirk. This was someone who'd run out of people to perform for. "I know I shouldn't be here," she said before I could say anything. But I had nowhere else to go. I glanced down at her hands, no suitcase, no purse. Just her arms crossed over her chest, as if she were holding herself together. I thought of that card taped behind the door. This number no longer serves. I didn't open the door. I didn't even unlock it. "I just need 5 minutes," she continued. "Please." I leaned slightly closer to the glass. "Why?" She hesitated. That shook me. Darla never hesitated. Her answers were always quick, sharp, calculated. But this time she had to search for one. "Because I finally see what I did," she said. "And what I ruined." That almost got me. Almost. "You saw what you did the moment I slipped that envelope under the hotel door," I replied calmly. "You just didn't care. Until the fantasy stopped returning your texts." Her face fell. "That's not fair." I let out a short breath through my nose. "Neither was finding a note in your planner written to someone who wasn't your husband." She stepped back slightly, like the memory slapped her. "I've changed." "No, Darla," I said. "You're just lonely." That silence that followed was a vacuum. She looked away toward the street, as if she were hoping someone, anyone, might be walking by to save her. But no one came. When she looked back, her voice cracked. "He left. Said I was too messy. That I had baggage. Can you believe that?" I didn't flinch. "Yes." She blinked. I continued. "He saw the part of you I spent years trying to fix. The difference is, I loved you enough to stay while you unraveled. That did it." Her eyes welled instantly. "I didn't know what I had with you until you broke it," I finished. She looked down, biting her lower lip. And for a long time we just stood there, me behind a locked door, her outside in the drizzle with no umbrella, no plan, no backup. Then I said something I hadn't planned on saying. "I'm not mad anymore." Her eyes shot up. "You're not." "No. I'm just done." She reached out, almost reflexively, and touched the glass between us. Her fingers trembled slightly. "You still wear your ring," she whispered. I looked down at my hand. She was right. I hadn't even noticed. It was still there, like a ghost of the man I used to be. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it off and held it in my palm. Then I pressed it gently against the glass where her hand rested, and dropped it into the small potted plant by the door. "I don't anymore," I said, and then I walked away. I didn't wait to see her reaction. I didn't look back. I just let the silence speak. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. It's been 4 months since that rainy doorstep moment, since I left her standing outside the home she once ruled, hand pressed to glass, with nothing left to say. I never asked what she did after I closed the door, whether she waited or cried or cursed me under her breath. I never looked out the window. I let the silence swallow that chapter whole. And then I turned to the next. I didn't burn her things. I didn't throw a tantrum or post our story across social media. I boxed up her clothes, her books, her photos, and left them with her sister. I didn't include a note. She didn't need one. Every empty drawer was a sentence. Every cleared shelf was punctuation. I kept only one thing, a Polaroid of Waffles, our golden retriever, the only innocent in all of this. The mornings got easier. The house stopped echoing with the weight of things unsaid. I painted the living room a soft green, swapped the dining table for a smaller one, and donated the amber lamp she always insisted made things homey. It wasn't homey anymore. It was mine now. I started journaling again. I reconnected with old friends, the kind I hadn't seen in years because I was always too busy being available for someone who wasn't available for me. I even signed up for a weekend pottery class. Not because I'm good at it, I'm terrible, but because it felt ridiculous and new and mine. One Saturday afternoon, I brought Waffles to the local park. There was a craft fair going on nearby, and while he sniffed his way through every booth, I grabbed a lemonade and sat on a bench under the trees. That's when I noticed someone sketching across the path. Her name was Linny. Uncommon name, but then again, I've learned to appreciate the uncommon. She was drawing faces of passersby, not for money, just for joy. There was something unhurried about her, like she moved at her own pace regardless of the world's tempo. We talked. We laughed real laughter, not the kind you use to keep someone comfortable. It wasn't flotation. It was connection. Gentle. Human. Weeks passed and we kept running into each other. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I realized she was simply kind enough to make it look that way. We talked more. She showed me her sketchbook. I showed her the planters I'd been learning to make, lopsided, cracked ones, but mine nonetheless. And one morning, over coffee from mismatched mugs, she asked me about my past. I told her. Not everything. But enough. And when I finished, she didn't wince or pity me. She just nodded slowly and said, "You survived her." I smiled. I think I survived myself more. That was the moment I realized something I wish I'd known sooner. Healing isn't loud. It's not an explosion of freedom or some thunderous reawakening. It's subtle. It's the first time your chest doesn't tighten when you hear her name. It's a dinner table set for one where you no longer feel lonely. It's watching a sunset alone and not aching for someone to see it with you because you were seeing it fully, completely, without a filter of pain. Darla never came back again. Not physically. Not in texts. Not in letters. Maybe she realized there was nothing left for her to reclaim. Maybe she finally saw that the version of me she abandoned was buried for good. And what rose in his place? Someone gentler. Someone quieter. But above all, someone free.